Well, there is a thing that they say that every game is rock, paper, scissors. In fact, every game is cow clicker. No. You see, the weird thing is that if I'm not including any objects, then what's allocating? Oh dear God. Okay, this is crazy. I've never seen this one before. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try something, because when real weirdness arises, there is a ritual that one should do. It is, here it comes, it's the close Unity, delete library folder, restart Unity. Yes, it's a kind of variation of turn it off and on again. So Slayer Darth is asking, when you were teaching game dev, what were the main points you tried to hammer down? I'm coming at this from a programmer's perspective, but I don't really have much experience with game dev, but I'm sure a lot of principles are the same. Okay, well, I had some freedom to influence the curriculum, and I taught the things that nobody else wanted to teach, which suited me fine, because I was teaching the stuff that was really important. The popular courses, well, there was a colleague I had who was also teaching, but it was very, very important, but I'm being a bit tongue-in-cheek. But there is this sexy stuff and the not sexy stuff. I would teach the non-sexy stuff. So here's some things that you need to know if you want to be a programmer for video games. You absolutely need to know your linear algebra. You absolutely need to know your linear algebra. You need to know also trigonometry. These basic things you cannot get by without. So yeah, there was that. Then so the first block I would teach them, I gave them a linear algebra course, and later in the year I would give them a calculus course, absolutely non-negotiable. Hey AB, how you doing? How you doing? Welcome back. Welcome back. So I would teach calculus. Now, I can bet you that since my departure, there is probably absolutely no calculus being taught anymore, and that would be a great shame if that is true, because calculus is critical. As a video game developer, you are always dealing with changes over time. The reality of video game development is always about changes over time, and it's always about building integrators in one way or another. So calculus, movement, it ties into physics. Just know physics of a ball or whatever it is. These things were really critical, so I taught that. Again, not popular. I didn't make life easy for myself by teaching something like shader programming. Oh, yeah, here's shader programming. Whee! You can do this and take this bit of code from over there. You can you can do all of it. Yeah, have fun, shader programming. And then if you try and do shader programming without knowing your linear algebra, you're not really learning shader programming. But anyway, that's it, try to bypass the maths. Exactly. So those two are very important. I also taught a course called Software Architecture and Design, and this was trying to hammer home the point that if you want to, as a programmer, you're actually really a designer. I was trying very hard to get them away from the mindset of looking at their code as, this is a for loop, this is a linked list, this is a, but looking at it in terms of, this is a complex piece of software that we have to maintain, and we need to have a strategy for maintaining it. And so I used all of my experience on that issue and brought that to the front and tried to get them to think. More important than whether they remembered what I was teaching them, it was more a case of getting into that way of thinking about software, where you're thinking about flexibility, you're thinking about architecture, you're thinking about the forces that are involved, you're thinking about risk. I gave them tools to use for managing risk and so on. And so this whole, and it's just paid on my philosophy for stuff. So anyway, I did that, and then in the second year I taught physics. So it was physics for games. It was, and there we're building up in layers different things, slowly building up different things to get them to the point where they could understand the basics of rigid body mechanics, which is actually quite a challenge. But it exercises so many good things. It exercises your visualization, your understanding what an axis of rotation is, impulses, torque. Once you've gone through that course, then you should have a kind of understanding. When somebody says what torque is, and you know what the angular equivalent of mass is, which is the moment of inertia, and so I did all of that. The other courses I taught then was something I called Tools and Techniques, which was like a kind of a bag of different things. It's more advanced software architecture, but also building tools. And I teach them my property tree system, which is something I actually have used to make the new UI system that we want to put into the game. It's a thing I've been using for 20 years. I've made many times. I made it again now in C# for the second time, because the first time was a bit ropey. And then AI, where I taught them the proc system. So it started off with sort of like the fundamentals, and then it's sort of building up on them. I was quite proud of the structure of all of that. Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. What really annoys me is I kept on having to argue the case for it, which was kind of crazy. I looked at it as pillars of understanding, is what I would call it. I would try to give them a structure that would allow them to continue their learning. But yeah, problem is I was teaching at a school where that kind of approach, it sort of mirrors the gameplay versus production value thing that we were talking about earlier, in a funny kind of way. Yeah, but I would argue that you shouldn't brush up. It's not a case of brushing up, it's a case of diving in. If you want a project that would really help you, it's to build your own engine software, rasterize that engine, so that instead of relying on the API for OpenGL, you actually just take a texture and you write a very simple renderer that can render polygons and make that code up yourself from scratch with all of the mathematics involved. It doesn't need to be fast. We just need to, do it. And actually, that one colleague that I had, In fact, his expertise was software ray tracing and whatever, that kind of line of things. He would get them to write, he would get the students to write one. It's actually not that difficult. What's difficult is the understanding of the fact it requires all this sort of mathematics to back up what you do. You learn. If that's the mission, do it that way. Dive in. It will force you. Write your own shaders. Shader programming. Fantastic exercise for training your understanding of linear algebra, dot products and cross products and whatever. It depends what you want to do. I would actually argue that it's a good idea to separate the making of games from the practice of the principles, because if you try and do both at the same time, it's horrible. And so you make your own software rasterizer, for example, but not because you're going to use it in a game. It's an exercise to train yourself. Yeah, you know. So, where am I at? I've re-imported everything, and now I'm going to go back to build, and I'm going to make a new build. It's a new empty build. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Slayer. I'm hearing you on that one. The IDEs are terrible. They don't help. You know why I say that? Because if you watch the amount of time when I'm coding that I'm relying, they can't feel to... Yeah, okay, do they feel better? Do you prefer it? One of the things that's different is that you won't be able to get... The player is facing this way and does a 90-degree turn and slide instantaneously. That won't happen anymore. So the problem with the over-reliance on IDEs is that you actually spend a lot of your time programming not actually typing in stuff. You notice, but it's like it's not the bottleneck. What is the bottleneck? The bottleneck is what's in your head. Now, I've been thinking about this a lot because when I was programming in assembler, I seemed to be more productive, and I didn't have any autocomplete. Well, that's not true. I was using Emacs, and it kind of had a sort of autocomplete that you could save on type. You start typing something and it will complete, but that's different to what we've got now, which you can actually press it and you get a list of everything. And I don't know. I'm not sure. What I think that happens at some point, though, is that the memory of what you're doing. I mean, isn't it? If the IDE is doing everything for you, does that mean that you don't get your brain to do anything for you? And if you don't get the brain to do anything for you, then maybe it's not able to work with it. It's like you push the code around with a long stick instead of diving in. I'm not sure. So you preferred it. So in theory, Raduga, they are less powerful. Or you have to be more precise. We'll have to see in multiplayer match, how it affects things. So maybe we need to have a match at some point. I think one of the things. Okay, well that's good. You have to think more before sliding. What there is it's the disease. Modern disease is convenience. We race towards convenience until there's nothing left of the soul of anything. It's made a Windows build. No wonder that was. Actually, I wonder whether it's a problem with the Windows build. That's worth a check. I've got Visual Studio 2017 or whatever, and it's got this automatic, this quick info thing. I did a, oh, you know, you've seen it, XP. Oh my god. And even now, sometimes I'm working on a thing and it's slow. Visual Studio slow. It's like I'm faster than Visual Studio. Oh, come on. What are you doing? Cancel. Let's build. So we get convenience. It's like students at maths, when it came to maths exams, and they'd ask me, will you allow us to use calculators? And my heart would sink. Calculators are very convenient. So's a Segway. If you're using a Segway when you're supposed to be jogging, I mean, it doesn't crash when I run a Windows build in debug. Fascinating. That was funny. You said good game, Tehu. I thought you were saying good night, Tehu. And I said, did Tehu say good night? Yeah, look at. Here's for. Let's try making a. Look, I need you to switch to PS4. Damn it. Oh no, not this problem again. So bored of it. No, same old problem. Let's try this again. Yeah, okay. Flipping heck. And that's what's happened with education as well. It's become focused on convenience until in the end it's what's the most convenient thing to do is lower the bar. Let's put the bars all on the floor and we can have the students just walk across them and go through the gate at the end and give them their certificate. It's so convenient that way. That's the danger when PS4 build. I can't get on with Vim at all, or VI, because oh dear, I did the wrong thing. I can't get on with it at all because it's modal. I'm an Emacs guy myself. Let combat begin. Oh, come on. Debug, SCE. Let's try building now. I'm not getting much further trying to figure out why this is it. This is what I spend my life doing. Figuring out why debug build doesn't run. If I'm lucky, the re-import, which by the way took like 10 minutes, select folder. It's making a build. This time it's a debug build. That's because I feel like a child again. I remember play school. Actually, Brian Kant. Everyone grew up my age. We all grew up with Brian Kant on play school. It was like an institution. He passed away recently in his 80s. Story time. Once upon a time, there was a game developer. The end. It crashed. What is the secret ingredient? Nothing. I mean, you're a game developer by it. What is going on is you're witnessing one of those scenarios. It begins with a game that works on the console when you build it, and then there's something you want to debug. So you say, hey Raduga, I'll make a debug build. And the point of making the debug build is that then I am able to debug it. So I go with my tool chain and make a debug build, and it crashes immediately. And I look in the logs and I see that it's trying to allocate a huge amount of memory and failing. Okay. So of course then immediately I think, it's something wrong with my game. And there begins a little journey. The journey where you start tearing stuff out. Let's put a simple scene in, still crashes. Let's disable the code, crashes. Let's just remove all the code, it crashes. But only when it's a debug build. When it's not a debug build, when I don't say I want to debug it, it works fine. And it carries on all that way until you reach the singularity, which I have now reached. The singularity where, yes, you do what you should have done at the beginning, except you had no reason to know that it was the thing that you should have done right at the beginning, which was to open an entirely new project, an empty project, a virgin project, a project that has yet to actually have any identity, a project the beginnings of which could turn into any of 1 billion video games. Yes, it's empty, and you do the same test, and it crashes. At which point you go, what the frack am I supposed to do now? That's where I am now. I'm in the singularity of what the frack am I supposed to do now? And wouldn't it be really great if I could spend my time actually coding a video game? Because that's why I'm here. A good programmer is clearly defined about how quickly they figure out why the game crashes when there is no game. Do you understand how crazy that is? The game crashes and there really isn't even a game yet. But only in debug mode. It's cute. It's cuddly. It's going to tear your head off. Yes. Maybe the heat got to me here. I'm a very poor programmer because I keep on fighting to the end. I am a coder. I am a coder. Oh, it's a scary show now, because the question I have for you is this. If this could happen with a video game, what's to stop it happening with your life? And if you want to be even more scared, how do you know it didn't already happen? That's good. That's good chin stroking. I have one thing. I'm just right now. I am in that mode. The right thing to do is to just go with it, and you say, hey, this is going to be one hell of a crazy ride. And then you just connect the dots and you say, the problem is not the game. The problem is debug mode, weirdness. It's a version of Unity we've been using for a long time. Got to remove... Right, so we could say it's not Unity. It's not a bug in Unity per se. So what does it have to be? It must be something to do with the console. And you say it must be something to do with the console. What's the clue? The clue is memory. Oh look, there's in debug settings a memory option. I've never used it, but I'm going to go there. Memory budget.
Thank you for a very enjoyable game.
Yes, thank you, Hal, for a very enjoyable game. That's what this is. It's a very enjoyable game. It is. I mean, it really is enjoyable, isn't it? I mean, they say happiness, misery is just a choice. There's two options here. Preserve direct memory. I don't know what that does. Well, there's memory budget mode. Normal. Okay. Let's try large. Now, I'm already thinking, as I'm doing this, will I be happy or sad when I find the answer? It's always good in this test, because I've done this, and now I'm going to run again, and it will either work or it won't. And then I can already think about how I will feel about either way. You know? While it's rebooting. Let's see. Power options. Restart PS4. If it works, I will be happy that I have solved the problem, while at the same time being very sad at the number of hours I've wasted as a result. If it still doesn't work, then I'm going to bed. It's one of those moments, you know. Just remember, okay? If you don't tap, you don't slide. Deep. That could be the motto of game developers everywhere. Remember now, if you don't tap, you won't slide. If you don't try, it won't blow up in your face. That's a horrible way to live. Are we already? This is interesting. What would Dino do? What WWDD? What would Dino do? I don't know. Oh, I forgot to answer a question that Zagu asked earlier on. He asked what was PB Dribble. I just remembered I didn't answer. There's lots that happened. So if you're there still, Zagu, I can come back to that because that's probably more fun than what's about to. I don't know. What shall I do? Shall I try it with debug or with... let's try it with debug. It's with debug mode set up now, okay? So in debug mode, large memory thing. We try. Build. Did it build it? I think I asked to build it. I didn't run it yet, right? This is the big moment. As, yes, I'm about to run it. We can everybody take their bets, please. What do you think will happen? Will it run or won't it? This is it. I don't know whether to laugh or cry. It doesn't work. What do I do? I've never seen anything like it. It's just... This is crazy. It's the craziest thing. It's like... I'm out of ideas. I'm out of ideas here. Where did this come from? Yeah, okay. Reboot the computer. It's come down to that. It's come down to reboot the computer. I haven't rebooted the computer, have I? Did I turn it off and on again? I'm going to reboot the computer. Okay? And it's probably not going to work. I don't know. Rebooting the computer. I will be right back. Don't go anywhere if you want to see me go absolutely nuts. I don't promise that, but it could happen. You never know. And let's start the restarted. It's restarting now. No. It's not going to restart. I have to shut this down. Okay.